What's up, guys? Today I'm going to show you how to change your brake master cylinder on your NA Miata. I came out here the other day and I noticed some oil, or I thought it was oil, up underneath the car. Didn't think it was that big of a deal because it's a turbo car and it's got over 100 and something thousand miles on it, and it's been turbo for I guess 3 years now, about 2.5, and I expect some oil seepage through some of the seals and things. I kept seeing it underneath different frame rails and stuff, and it wasn't quite up underneath the sump or the back where the rear main is next to the transmission. So I rose the car up, as you can see here, and I let it sit for about 2 weeks. After I cleaned everything off the floor, there was still no oil coming through, and I wasn't sure what was going on. It's right there, and this is sort of suspect because it's underneath some of the frame rails and the subframe. I wasn't exactly sure why that was, and there is no fluid inside my reservoir. Well, there's a little bit down there. So that's where all that oil was coming from. So today, I'm gonna go ahead and start changing my brake master cylinder. I've got a spare. These are, I think, about $100. There's some upgrades you can do. I'm not gonna do those. The other brake master I got was with this car when I purchased it a couple years back. It's still got the booster and everything on it. I'm not going to be using the booster, but I am going to be using this master cylinder. It seems to be in good condition. I'm not really that worried about it. If it does leak, then I guess I'll be back where I started and have to purchase another one. But these things, I think, are about 100, 130 bucks if you buy OEM. You can also go on Rock Auto, you know, of course, and buy non-OEM parts. So I'd like to keep it OEM, so I'm going to go ahead and use this used one. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to bench bleed it and show you how to install it. The hard part about this is going to be bleeding the whole system, so I'm probably going to have to enlist the wife to help me out, pumping some brakes and things, unless I can get a hold of a speed bleeder or something. Stay tuned, I'll show you how we do it. Alright, first things first, we're going to go ahead and set it up in the vise. If you don't have a vise, that's alright. You can usually hold this with some clamps if you need to. It's not ideal. A vise would be best, or having a friend hold it. Next, you're going to need some end adapters with I guess these are slip fittings at the end. If you buy a new master cylinder, they should come with them, or if you've bought any master cylinder new or refurbished, they should come with them. These are some spares I had left over from some other jobs I've done. You're also going to need some nylon hose. This is just some oxygen tubing, but your kit should come with some. You have two ports in the front, and you have one port in the rear. The two ports here in the front are for the front brakes. You have both a left and a right bank. The rear port, which is on this far side that you can't see, it's for just the rear brakes. You have, if you look under your passenger side, you have a distribution block back there separating the left and the right bank. So all you need to do is make sure you have the rear line in. Again, this is the same thing as I had going in the front. You need a front line in, which will go right here. And I don't have a third one, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this bolt here to try and keep it pressurized, or from leaking fluid. This is a M10 by 1.25. It only goes in about 2 or 3 threads. You don't want to force it, because the idea here is to keep it from leaking out of it so you can bench bleed. We're gonna give it a shot, see if it works. If it doesn't, then I'll have to go back to the drawing board on how to plug that other end up, or just go buy another slip fitting, which I really don't want to do. Next, what you're going to do is go ahead and grab your brake fluid. I'm using RBF 600, so I don't really want to waste this stuff because it's super expensive. This is about 1/4 of what I had left from my other brake job. Next, you're going to take your tubes that you had, and you're going to submerge them in fluid down here. And what this is going to do, if I can get it to stay, is it's going to purge all the bubbles out, and as it does that, you're going to bench bleed. Take a screwdriver, in this case just a regular Phillips head, go into the piston port where the normal piston rod from the brake would be, and start pumping. Oh Lord. Oh Lord. Oh Jesus. Oh Lord. That was it was successful, but this thing has clearly not been moved in a while, so hopefully whatever I did didn't just break this thing. We're gonna try this again. Make sure you get this reservoir full. I just tried this pretty low, and it ended up draining a lot more fluid and pumping air back into it, so make sure that you get plenty of fluid in here. Do you see all those air bubbles coming in and out? The fluid is cycling through the master cylinder. Now you're going to want to do this until you don't see air bubbles coming out anymore. You know what? I'm sucking air in through that bolt. Oh, I can see it spitting. Oh, damn. Alright, so I may have cheated a bit. I didn't have to run to the store, so what I did is I took an old fitting I had and I just clipped it off of the hard line and put a bead of weld into it. This way it'll keep it nice and sealed, so I can plug up this in because it's definitely seeping from right there. Oh yeah. Man, there is another leak in that. Son of a bitch. And now we're going to prime it. And you'll see some of the air bubbles as you prime. You push in, let the air bubbles sink out of it, then pull back. And you're going to do this 3 or 4 different times, or at least until you stop seeing so many air bubbles. I don't think you're going to be able to get them all out. As you can see, there's some that are just stuck in there in the hose, and I can't get them. But that's alright. You'll get them whenever you actually bleed the entire system. As long as you have most of the fluid that's coming out devoid of air. The front here, you can see there's nothing, which is great. But the back over here, I can't quite get completely. I'm going to call that good. Now we got to put it in the car. So normally what you'd want to do is make sure that you had no fluid in your reservoir. Alright, that's new. That might be handy later on. In this case, you could tell there is no fluid because, well, it's all on the floor. So there's some tools that you're going to need for this. Usually you'd need a flare wrench for these hard lines. This here is what a flare wrench looks like. It's almost closed in on all sides except for the area that you would slip through and slide down. I don't have a 10 millimeter flare wrench, or yeah, this is only a 3/8, so I can't use it. That's okay. You can still get by using a 10 millimeter. This 10 millimeter, in this case, just a standard Craftsman. It's not perfect for this, and you have a risk that you run of stripping the flare nut themselves. You don't want to do that. If you get these things stuck in there, I don't really know what you'd have to cut the hard lines and drill them out or something. It's kind of a nightmare, so you need to be kind of ginger with this. This metal's pretty soft, so that way it makes a nice seal inside of these tapered fittings. So first things first, we're going to go ahead and remove the front 2 flare nuts, and then there's a banjo bolt on the back with another flare nut we're going to remove. This is a banjo bolt. Now banjo bolts, it's common to have, and you should have, a copper washer on either side of the bolt. It's pretty much just a through bolt for fluid. The banjo part, or the other bolt, it's actually a flared end on that, and it stays on the car. This is the only part that'll come out. Alright, now once you've removed all of these fittings, you're going to have 2 bolts on the back side here along the brake booster. These are the only 2 bolts that are actually holding the master cylinder onto the brake booster. You're going to go ahead and break those bolts loose. Now you're just going to pull it right out. And oops, there we go. Alright. Oh yeah. Look at all that schmoo. Yeah, she's an old one. Take a look. She'd been leaking for a while, it looks like. You can see all the paint's coming off of the brake booster there. There's a lot of corrosion setting in. Yeah, she's a little gross. We'll go ahead and get the other one installed. I'll show you what we got to do. So for some reason when I was recording this, I lost my audio for this clip. This is during the reinstall process. As you can see, there's no fluid in my reservoir. That's because I accidentally dropped and spilled fluid out of the reservoir. But you're going to want to keep fluid inside your reservoir if you can, so putting the cap back on would definitely help maintain it. I've also taken off the side ports, which you should probably leave on. But fishing it in, just make sure you get that bracket next to the distribution manifold right there lined up, and then whenever you put it on, it should have no problems. It's pretty simple. So I've been working on this now for at least 10 minutes trying to get this one in here. As you can see, the thing's moving around a little bit. What I did was I had to somewhat bend the line a bit, not really a whole lot, just enough to flex it around to where it would make a straight run into the threads. I loosened up these bolts down here a bit so that way I'd give myself a little more movement around so I could get some angle on it, and I just was able to make it bite onto like 1 or 2 threads before I was able to actually tighten it in. This part of it always sucks the most. So get prepared to maybe do a little bit of cussing, maybe sit down a little bit, get your mind right, because it'll take you a second. Then after that, once those lines are in, then we got to work on the banjo bolt. I'll tighten this one in there pretty far. It's a pretty lengthy line. Don't forget on your banjo bolt, you got 2 washers in there. Oh, come on. Why are these gloves? You got 2 washers. One will go on either side. So one here and then one on the other side. I can already tell this one's going to be a pain. Oh. Maybe not. Maybe that worked. We'll see here. If you feel like it's cross-threading, don't. Keep going. Ooh, got lucky on that one. Woohoo! Click. 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 Okay. All that's left now is to bleed the system. So what I want you to do is go ahead and like pump it a little bit 3 times. You holding it? All right. Keep holding it. It should fall to the floor.
It did.
Tell me when it fell all the way to the floor.
All the way.
All right. Pump it back up. Pump it 3 times. Okay. Now you're holding, right?
It's on the floor.
Alright, pump it slow. You holding? Alright, go ahead and pump it. You holding it? Is it to the floor?
Floor.
Okay, pump it again. Hold it. few more times I'm getting air bubbles now, so
Lower.
pump it.
Lower.
Pump it. And hold. Let me go check the reservoir. Oh yeah. Well guys, that's all there is to it, to changing a master cylinder in your car and bench bleeding. Hopefully this is helpful for some of you guys, and I know this is a pretty common thing to have happen on any car of high mileage or older, up in years. I showed you as much as I really could about how to bleed the system. I don't have a speed bleeder. I just enlisted my wife into it and had her pressing the brake for me and holding it down whenever I opened the bleed port on the brakes. You always start with the furthest point first. In this case, it's the passenger rear, then work your way forward. And as far as distance of brake lines, so passenger rear, driver's rear, passenger front, driver's front. And then after you see no more air bubbles in the system, you're good to go. Just make sure you don't let the reservoir drain down all the way, or else you're going to introduce air back into the system and have to do the whole process over again. This was a pretty straightforward way on how to bleed your brake master cylinder. There's other ways you can do it as well with a speed bleeder if you have one. You can also put it in the car. I did the bench bleed on a bench, but you can do a bench bleed in the car as well. It's pretty much the same process. You'll just pump the brake instead. It helps to have another person around if you do it that way. The way I did it, you can do it just yourself. I've got some more content coming this year. I've got some track days I plan on doing, maybe 2, maybe a little bit more street driving. I've got some different changes on the front end I want to make. Things have been going kind of slow right now because it's super cold. I don't know what it is about the eastern United States this year, but it's been pretty chilly. So when things start warming up, I'll start being in the garage a little bit more. Right now, I'm already kind of chilly. If you like the content, like and subscribe. Post up in the comments. I'm pretty active in there. I'm all for constructive criticism. So if you see something that I'm doing wrong or different, or something that's kind of annoying, let me know. I don't mind changing ways up. I'm still learning a bit with the software and this camera. It's nothing big. Hopefully I'll get some more equipment here soon. But like and subscribe. See you guys.